Imagine for a moment standing beside a great river. The water rushes forward, unstoppable, carving its path through the earth. You could try to dam it, fight it, or redirect it, but the river flows as it will, indifferent to your struggles. And yet, when you step into the current, feel its cool embrace, and move with its rhythm, something extraordinary happens. You become part of its flow. This, my friends, is the essence of controlling your life. Imagine for a moment standing beside a great river, its waters endlessly rushing forward, carving its path through the earth with an almost mystical determination. This river is untamed, unyielding, and completely indifferent to any attempt to stop its flow. You might try to dam it, redirect it, or even build a wall to block it entirely. But deep down, you know the truth: the river will find a way. It always does. Yet something extraordinary happens when you step into the current, not to fight it, but to feel it. The cool, flowing water surrounds you, and as you allow yourself to move with it, you find a new sense of connection. You are no longer separate from the river, you are a part of its rhythm, its life force. This, my friends, is where the secret to controlling your life begins. Control, as we often perceive it, is an illusion. We grow up believing that the tighter we hold on to things, the more control we have over them. We build intricate plans, map out every detail of our futures, and cling to these blueprints with white-knuckled determination. But what happens when life inevitably veers off course? The rain falls harder than expected, the wind shifts, or an unforeseen obstacle appears, and suddenly everything we built feels fragile, like a house of cards swaying in a storm. We panic, grasping even harder, trying to force the pieces back into place. But the harder we push, the more life resists, and the more drained we become. And to truly understand control, you must first understand its opposite, the art of letting go. Letting go doesn't mean giving up or becoming passive. It means recognizing the natural flow of life, much like the river, and choosing to move with it rather than against it. Think of a leaf floating on the surface of the water. It doesn't fight the current, it simply rides it, twisting and turning gracefully, trusting the journey. This doesn't make the leaf weak, it makes it wise. It has learned something many of us struggle to grasp: the most profound power comes not from force, but from alignment. This is not to say that life should be lived without effort or intention. Quite the contrary. Imagine a sailor navigating the open sea. He cannot control the wind or the waves, but he can adjust his sails, steer his ship, and choose his destination. His mastery lies not in commanding the forces of nature, but in working with them. Similarly, in your life, true control isn't about bending the world to your will. It's about understanding the forces at play, your circumstances, your emotions, the people around you, and using them to guide your path. The illusion of control often leads us to believe that we must micromanage every detail, anticipate every outcome, and protect ourselves from every possible failure. But this obsession with control doesn't make us safer, it makes us anxious, rigid, and unable to adapt. Life is inherently unpredictable. Trying to control it completely is like trying to hold water in your hands. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slips away. Paradoxically, the moment you stop trying to control everything is the moment you gain true power. When you let go of the need to dominate and instead focus on what you can influence, you open yourself to a new kind of mastery. You begin to see opportunities in challenges, lessons in failures, and beauty in uncertainty. You realize that life isn't something to be conquered, it's something to be experienced deeply and fully. Consider this: the only moment you truly have control over is the present. Not yesterday, which has already flowed past, nor tomorrow, which exists only as a possibility. The present moment is where your power lies. When you bring your full attention to it, when you act with intention rather than reaction, you step into the flow of life with clarity and purpose. You learn to respond to situations rather than resist them, to adapt rather than fight, and to create rather than fear. The river of life is always moving, always changing. You can stand on the shore and watch it pass you by, or you can step into the current and let it carry you. This doesn't mean you surrender your goals or aspirations. It means you pursue them with a sense of trust and fluidity. You adjust your sails when the wind changes, knowing that you don't control the storm, but you can navigate through it. You plant seeds today without obsessing over when they'll sprout, trusting that the flow of time will nurture them in its own way. To control your life is not to master every detail, but to master yourself within the flow. It is to find the courage to let go of what you cannot change, the wisdom to act where you can make a difference, and the presence of mind to live fully in this moment. Step into the river. Feel its current. Trust its flow. The more you align with it, the more you discover that life isn't something happening to you, it's something happening with you. In that harmony lies your greatest power. The art of letting go is often misunderstood. It's not about giving up or resigning yourself to whatever happens. It's about releasing the unnecessary grip of fear and control that keeps you tethered to outcomes you cannot dictate. Imagine holding a rope tightly in your hands. At first it feels secure, like you're in charge, but as time passes, the pressure begins to hurt. Your palms ache, your muscles tire, and the rope begins to fray under your relentless pull. You look down and realize something profound. The rope isn't tied to anything. All this time you've been clinging to a belief that holding on gives you power, but in reality it's been draining you. Letting go isn't weakness, it's liberation. We are taught to grip tightly from a young age onto our dreams, relationships, possessions, and even identities. Society rewards control, associating it with success, strength, and reliability. But what it rarely acknowledges is the cost of this relentless grasp. The tighter we cling, the more rigid we become, and the less adaptable we are when life inevitably changes course. This rigidity creates stress, anxiety, and a deep sense of dissatisfaction because no matter how hard we try, life will never align perfectly with our plans. Letting go means understanding that life is not a problem to be solved, but a process to be experienced. It's realizing that control is an illusion, and the more you try to dominate life, the more you distance yourself from its natural flow. Think of a tree in the wind. A rigid tree with unyielding branches will snap under the force of a storm, while a flexible one will bend and sway, surviving the tempest. The tree doesn't resist the wind, it moves with it, trusting its roots to hold steady. This principle applies to our emotions as well. When we resist uncomfortable feelings, anger, sadness, fear, they don't disappear. They grow stronger, festering beneath the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. Letting go doesn't mean ignoring these emotions, it means allowing yourself to feel them fully without judgment or resistance. It's giving yourself permission to be human, to experience the full spectrum of life without trying to control or suppress it. When you let go of the need to feel only happiness or success, you create space for growth, healing, and deeper understanding. Relationships, too, are a powerful area where letting go can transform your experience. We often cling to people not out of love, but out of fear of loneliness, rejection, or change. We try to mold them to fit our expectations, to keep them close on our terms. But real connection cannot be forced. It thrives in freedom, in allowing others to be who they are and choosing to walk alongside them without controlling their path. Letting go in relationships doesn't mean you care less, it means you trust more. Trust in the strength of your bond, in the authenticity of your connection, and in the natural flow of life to bring the right people into your world at the right time. Even in the pursuit of goals, letting go is essential. It's easy to fall into the trap of obsessing over outcomes, believing that achieving a specific result will bring lasting happiness. But life rarely unfolds exactly as planned. Sometimes the detours lead to destinations far greater than the ones we envisioned. Letting go means staying committed to the process rather than the outcome. It's about doing your best in the moment, knowing that your efforts will ripple out in ways you may not yet understand. This doesn't mean abandoning ambition or becoming passive. Letting go is an active choice, a practice of releasing what weighs you down so you can move forward with clarity and purpose. It's about focusing your energy on what you can influence, your actions, your mindset, your presence, while accepting that the rest is beyond your control. The beauty of letting go is that it opens the door to possibilities you could never imagine while clinging to a narrow view of how life should be. It allows you to adapt, to grow, and to embrace the unexpected gifts that come your way. When you let go, you're not losing control, you're gaining freedom. Freedom to live authentically, to love deeply, and to experience life in its fullest, most vibrant form. So what would happen if you loosened your grip? What if you trusted the flow of life a little more and fought it a little less? You might find that the very act of letting go brings you closer to what you've been seeking all along: peace, joy, and the profound realization that you've been free all this time. The present moment is the only place where life truly exists, yet it is often the most overlooked. We spend so much of our time dwelling in the past, replaying memories or regrets, wishing we could rewrite what's already written. At the same time, we project ourselves into the future, anxiously trying to anticipate every twist and turn, believing that if we prepare enough, we can control what's to come. But in this constant back and forth between what was and what might be, we miss the one thing that is real now. Life is not happening in the stories you tell yourself about yesterday or tomorrow. It is unfolding right here in this moment. It's in the breath you just took, in the sound of the world around you, in the sensations of your body, and in the emotions you feel. The present is where your power lies, where your choices are made, and where your experience of life becomes vivid and meaningful. Yet so many of us treat the present as a stepping stone to something else, a future goal, a better situation, or a version of ourselves that feels more complete. The irony is that everything you are working toward, everything you desire, can only be experienced in the present. Joy, fulfillment, love, and peace are not things that exist in some distant future. They are states of being that you can cultivate right now, regardless of your circumstances. But to do so, you must first bring your attention back to the here and now, grounding yourself in the reality of this moment. The present moment is not always comfortable. It can be messy, uncertain, or even painful. This is why many people avoid it, seeking distractions or numbing themselves to its intensity. But avoiding the present only amplifies the discomfort. It creates a disconnect between you and your life, leaving you feeling unfulfilled and out of sync. When you embrace the moment fully, no matter how it feels, you unlock a sense of freedom and authenticity that is impossible to find anywhere else. This doesn't mean you should ignore the past or stop planning for the future. The past offers valuable lessons and the future provides direction. But neither should dominate your awareness. Think of the past and future as tools useful when needed, but not meant to be carried everywhere. The present is where you use those tools to shape your life. It's where action happens, where decisions are made, and where change begins. And to truly live in the now requires practice. It's not something that comes naturally in a world filled with distractions and demands. Start by noticing the small details of your everyday experience. Feel the warmth of the sun on your skin, listen to the rhythm of your breath, or savor the taste of your morning coffee. These moments may seem insignificant, but they are the threads that weave the fabric of your life. Being present also means fully engaging with the people around you. How often do we find ourselves half listening in conversations, our minds drifting elsewhere? Imagine the depth of connection you could experience if you gave someone your full attention, truly hearing their words and feeling their presence. In these moments, relationships grow stronger and life feels richer. Of course, the present moment isn't always easy to face. It might hold challenges, uncertainties, or emotions you'd rather avoid. But even in these moments, there is power. When you confront the present with courage and acceptance, you realize that you are capable of more than you thought. You learn that pain is temporary, that challenges can be overcome, and that every moment, even the difficult ones, contains the seed of growth. Living in the now doesn't mean you stop dreaming or striving. It means you approach your dreams and goals from a place of presence rather than longing. Instead of waiting for happiness to arrive when you reach a milestone, you find it in the steps you take today. Instead of pinning your worth on future achievements, you recognize the value of who you are in this moment. The present is a gift that is always available to you, no matter what your circumstances may be. It is where life's beauty is found, where laughter echoes, where tears fall, and where love grows. It is the only time you can truly act, create, and experience. When you choose to live in the now, you reclaim your life from the distractions of yesterday and tomorrow. You step into a state of flow where time seems to stand still and everything feels aligned. So take a deep breath. Feel the weight of this moment and let it anchor you. Let go of the need to rush or control and simply be here. This is where life happens. This is where you find your power. This is where you are truly alive. Life is a delicate dance between action and acceptance, a balance that many of us struggle to find. On one side is the desire to take charge, to exert effort, and to shape our lives according to our ambitions. On the other is the need to recognize and accept the things we cannot change, to adapt and flow with the unpredictable nature of existence. The tension between these two forces often creates inner conflict, as we either push too hard against life's natural rhythms or withdraw entirely, overwhelmed by its challenges. But somewhere in the middle lies harmony, a state where action and acceptance coexist, allowing us to navigate life with both strength and grace. Action is essential. It is through action that we express our will, make choices, and create change. Without it, life becomes stagnant, and opportunities pass us by. Yet action driven by fear, desperation, or an obsessive need for control often leads to frustration and burnout. We find ourselves endlessly chasing goals, trying to force outcomes, and resisting any deviation from our plans. This relentless pursuit creates tension not only within ourselves but also in our relationships and the world around us. And acceptance, on the other hand, is often misunderstood as passivity or surrender. But true acceptance is not about giving up, it is about recognizing reality for what it is and finding peace within it. When we accept what we cannot change, we free ourselves from the struggle against life's inevitable uncertainties. We stop wasting energy on battles we cannot win and instead focus on what we can influence. Acceptance is not the absence of effort, but the wisdom to know where effort is meaningful and where it is not. Imagine a river flowing downstream. Action is the energy you use to paddle and navigate the current, steering toward your destination. Acceptance is the understanding that you cannot control the river's flow, its twists and turns, or the obstacles it may carry. Together, these two forces allow you to move forward without being swept away. If you focus only on paddling without understanding the river, you exhaust yourself fighting its power. But if you let go entirely and stop paddling, you drift aimlessly at the mercy of the current. It is the balance between the two, paddling with purpose while respecting the river's course, that allows you to journey effectively. This balance is particularly vital when facing challenges. Life will inevitably present difficulties, loss, disappointment, failure. In these moments, it's natural to feel the urge to resist, to fight against the pain, or to fix everything immediately. But sometimes the most powerful action is to pause and accept what is happening. Acceptance doesn't mean you welcome the challenge or want it to continue. It means you acknowledge its presence without denial or avoidance. From this place of acceptance, you can take deliberate and thoughtful action rather than reacting impulsively out of fear or anger. In relationships, too, this balance is key. Action involves showing up for others, communicating, and making an effort to build and maintain connections. But acceptance is what allows relationships to flourish without suffocating under unrealistic expectations. You cannot change another person, no matter how much you might want to. Acceptance means loving someone for who they are, not who you think they should be. It means allowing space for growth, for imperfections, and for the natural ebb and flow of connection. Balancing action and acceptance also requires self-awareness. Too often we swing to extremes, either overextending ourselves in endless activity or retreating into resignation. To find harmony, we must regularly reflect on our intentions and motivations. Are we acting out of alignment with our values, or are we simply trying to control the uncontrollable? Are we accepting life as it comes, or are we using acceptance as an excuse to avoid taking responsibility? Honest self-reflection helps us course correct and return to balance when we stray. There is a profound freedom in mastering this balance. When you act with intention and accept with grace, you experience life in its fullness. You understand that while you cannot dictate every circumstance, you can always choose your response. You learn to move with life's rhythms rather than against them, finding opportunities even in adversity. This harmony does not mean life becomes easy or predictable. Challenges will still arise and effort will still be required, but when you approach life with both courage and humility, you no longer feel the need to control everything. You trust yourself to act when action is needed and to let go when letting go is wiser. So, as you navigate the journey of your life, remember this dance. Be bold enough to act and humble enough to accept. In this balance, you will find not only resilience but also peace. You will discover that life is not something to be conquered or feared, but something to be lived deeply and authentically, one moment at a time. Control is something we often equate with power, a sense of security, or even the key to success. But the pursuit of control, as most people understand it, often leads to frustration, rigidity, and a disconnect from the richness of life itself. The true control doesn't come from trying to dominate every aspect of your experience. It comes from mastering your relationship with life. It's not about gripping tighter, but about understanding what truly lies within your influence and releasing your hold on everything that does not. We live in a world that values predictability and structure. We are taught to make plans, set goals, and work tirelessly to achieve them. And while discipline and focus are important, the overemphasis on controlling every outcome can leave us feeling trapped. We find ourselves in a constant state of anxiety, trying to force life into a mold it may not fit. The weather doesn't comply, people don't behave as we expect, and circumstances shift in ways we cannot anticipate. The more we cling to our need for control, the more life seems to resist, pushing back against our efforts. But what if we redefined control? Instead of seeing it as an external force to be exerted on the world, we could view it as an internal state, a mastery of our own thoughts, actions, and reactions. This shift changes everything. When you stop trying to control the uncontrollable, you free yourself from unnecessary stress and frustration. You begin to focus on what truly matters: your perspective, your choices, and the way you show up in the world. Imagine standing in the middle of a storm. The wind howls, rain lashes against your skin, and the world around you is chaotic. You cannot stop the storm, no matter how much you might want to, but you do have control over how you face it. You can panic, trying to fight the elements, or you can find shelter, steady yourself, and wait for the storm to pass. The storm itself doesn't change, but your experience of it does. This is the essence of true control, not changing the external world, but transforming your inner response to it. This perspective becomes especially powerful when applied to challenges and setbacks. Life will inevitably bring difficulties, no matter how carefully you plan or how much effort you put in. These moments test us, not by how much control we can exert over them, but by how well we can adapt and respond. Resilience doesn't come from denying reality, it comes from embracing it, learning from it, and finding strength within it. Control also shifts when you recognize the importance of balance. There are times to act decisively and times to let go. Many people fall into the trap of believing they must always push harder, do more, and force results. But this relentless drive often leads to burnout and diminishing returns. Sometimes the most effective action is to pause, reflect, and allow things to unfold naturally. This doesn't mean you abandon your goals, it means you trust the process and give yourself permission to move with life rather than against it. In relationships, the need for control can be especially damaging. We often want others to behave in ways that align with our expectations, thinking that if they just listened or understood us better, everything would be fine. But relationships are not about control, they are about connection. Trying to control another person's behavior or emotions creates tension and distance. True connection comes from acceptance, empathy, and the willingness to let people be who they are. Paradoxically, when you stop trying to control others, you create space for deeper and more authentic relationships to flourish. At its core, control is about trust in yourself, trust in the people around you, and trust in the flow of life. When you trust that you can handle whatever comes your way, the need for rigid control diminishes. You realize that you don't have to micromanage every detail to feel secure. You become more open to change, more willing to take risks, and more present in the moment. This doesn't mean life becomes easy or predictable. It won't. But when you focus on mastering what's within you, your thoughts, your actions, and your ability to adapt, you discover a kind of control that is far more powerful than trying to force the external world into compliance. You find peace not because life is perfect, but because you are no longer at war with it. So let go of the illusion that control means having everything go your way. True control is the ability to remain steady in the face of life's uncertainties, to act with intention, and to trust in the unfolding of your journey. When you embrace this perspective, you free yourself from the constant struggle for dominance and step into a space of balance, resilience, and genuine freedom. Life will continue to flow, unpredictable and wild, but you will no longer need to fight it. You will be in harmony with it, riding its waves with strength, clarity, and purpose. Control. What a fascinating concept. We spend so much of our lives trying to control our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. Yet the more we try to dominate the mind, the more elusive true mastery becomes. What if I told you that control is not about force or discipline, but about understanding, acceptance, and harmony? Today, let's explore the paradox of control. That to truly master your mind, you must first learn to let go. Control is something we often misunderstand, especially when it comes to our minds. Most of us believe that to control our thoughts and emotions, we must wage war against them, wrestle them into submission, or impose some form of rigid discipline. But what if this very struggle is what keeps us trapped? What if control, true control, doesn't come from force, but from something much deeper, something paradoxical? Imagine trying to smooth out a pond's surface by slapping the water. The harder you try, the more ripples you create. The more frantic your effort, the further you are from the calmness you seek. This is the nature of the mind. The more we strive to dominate it, the more elusive peace becomes. When we attempt to control our minds through sheer willpower, we create tension. That tension amplifies every thought and emotion we're trying to suppress. Have you ever told yourself not to think about something, maybe an embarrassing memory or a nagging fear, only to have that thought stubbornly lodge itself in your consciousness? That's the paradox at play. The harder you push it away, the more power you give it. The mind, like water, flows freely when left to its own rhythm, but it resists when we attempt to force it into submission. Control begins when we recognize this dynamic. It doesn't mean giving in to every fleeting thought or impulse, but it does mean stepping back to observe. This observation, this detached awareness, is not about judgment or analysis. It's about watching the mind as you would watch clouds drift across the sky. Thoughts come, thoughts go. Some are bright and light. Others are dark and heavy. But they all pass. When you stop wrestling with them, when you allow them to simply be, you begin to see their transient nature. You realize that your mind is not a storm to conquer, but a landscape to explore. This doesn't mean abandoning all effort or letting the mind run wild. On the contrary, it's about a deeper kind of effort, an effort rooted in understanding rather than control. When you allow the mind to settle naturally, like mud sinking to the bottom of a still pond, clarity emerges. But this clarity isn't something you can force. It arises when you stop trying to manipulate the surface and instead trust the natural process. There's a profound freedom in realizing that you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are like waves on the surface of the ocean, and you are the ocean itself, vast, deep, and untouched by the surface turbulence. When you identify too closely with your thoughts, every wave feels like it could drown you. But when you understand that you are the observer, the awareness behind those thoughts, the waves lose their power. They're just passing phenomena, nothing more. The idea of letting go might feel counterintuitive, especially in a culture that prizes control and discipline. We're taught to believe that control means power, that it means having the upper hand over everything, including our minds. But this approach only creates a cycle of frustration. The truth is, the mind doesn't respond well to domination. It rebels, much like a child who resists being told what to do. Instead, the mind flourishes when approached with curiosity and kindness. Think of a bird in the palm of your hand. Hold it too tightly and it struggles, desperate to escape. Hold it too loosely, and it might fly away. But hold it gently, with care and respect, and it stays with you. This is the balance we must strike with our minds. Not too tight, not too loose. Gentle, attentive, and willing to let things unfold as they will. Ultimately, control is not about forcing the mind to do your bidding. It's about aligning with its natural rhythm, understanding its flow, and working with it rather than against it. When you embrace this approach, you find that the need for control begins to dissolve. In its place arises something far more powerful, harmony. And in that harmony, the mind becomes your ally, not your adversary. You are not your thoughts. This simple truth can be one of the most liberating realizations in life, yet it's one we often struggle to fully embrace. For most of us, the mind operates like an incessant commentator, narrating our experiences, judging our actions, and projecting fears or hopes into the future. We become so entangled in this running dialogue that we forget we are not the voice. We are the awareness that hears it. The moment you realize this, a profound shift occurs. You step out of the turbulence of the mind and into a space of clarity and freedom. Imagine standing on a riverbank watching the water flow by. The river represents your thoughts, constantly moving, shifting, and changing. Some currents are gentle, while others are turbulent. Now consider what happens if you step into the river and try to control the flow. You might grab at the water, but it slips through your fingers. You might try to block the current, only to find it pushing harder against you. The river doesn't stop for you. It moves with its own rhythm, indifferent to your efforts. But if you remain on the bank and simply observe, you see the river for what it is, dynamic, ever-changing, but ultimately separate from you. This is how the mind works. When we attempt to control our thoughts by force, we get swept up in them. We identify with every fear, every desire, every judgment as though it defines us. But when we take a step back and observe, we create a space between ourselves and our thoughts. In that space, we discover that thoughts are just events happening within the mind, much like clouds moving through the sky or waves rolling across the ocean. They arise, they linger for a while, and then they dissipate. They are not permanent, nor are they you. This ability to observe the mind without judgment is a practice in itself. At first, it can feel challenging. The mind has a way of pulling us back into its narrative, seducing us with stories about who we are or what we should fear. But with practice, this observing stance becomes more natural. You begin to see thoughts for what they are. Fleeting mental phenomena, often shaped by habit, environment, or past conditioning. They lose their grip on you. Instead of reacting to every thought that arises, you develop the ability to pause, to reflect, and to choose your response. It's important to note that observing the mind isn't about suppressing or ignoring thoughts. Suppression is just another form of resistance, and resistance only strengthens the very thing you're trying to avoid. Observation, on the other hand, is about acknowledgement without attachment. It's about saying, there's a thought about fear, or there's a judgment about myself, and letting it pass without clinging to it or pushing it away. This non-attachment doesn't make you indifferent. It makes you free. Free to engage with thoughts that serve you and let go of those that don't. One of the most profound realizations that comes from this practice is that the mind is not your enemy. It is simply a tool, a mechanism designed to process, analyze, and interpret. Problems arise when we confuse the tool for the master, letting it dictate our sense of self and reality. By stepping into the role of the observer, you reclaim your position as the master of your experience. The mind continues to do what it does. It thinks, analyzes, and processes, but it no longer dominates you. You begin to guide it rather than being guided by it. In this state of observation, a new kind of clarity emerges. You start to notice patterns in your thoughts, repeated fears, habitual judgments, persistent desires. These patterns are like grooves worn into the mind through years of unconscious repetition. By observing them without judgment, you begin to loosen their hold. Awareness is the first step to transformation. When you see these patterns clearly, you can choose to change them, to create new grooves that serve you rather than limit you. Ultimately, this practice of observation is about reclaiming your freedom. Freedom from the constant chatter of the mind, from the stories it tells, and from the illusion that you are defined by your thoughts. You are not the river. You are the one watching it flow. And in that realization lies a profound sense of peace, a sense of being grounded in your true nature, aware, present, and free. Letting go is one of the most misunderstood concepts when it comes to controlling the mind. For many, it feels counterintuitive. How could relinquishing control lead to mastery? We are conditioned to believe that effort, discipline, and struggle are the keys to success. But the truth is, when it comes to the mind, the harder you fight to control it, the more it resists. It's like trying to hold on to water with a clenched fist. The tighter you grip, the faster it slips away. The art of letting go is not about giving up or being passive. It's about surrendering to the natural flow of life and finding strength in that surrender. When you stop trying to force your mind to behave in a certain way, you give it the space to settle naturally. Imagine a jar of muddy water. If you shake it, the water becomes cloudy and chaotic. But if you set it down and leave it undisturbed, the mud gradually sinks to the bottom, leaving the water clear. The mind works in the same way. Constant effort to control it only stirs up more confusion. But when you allow it to be still, clarity emerges on its own. This is not to say that letting go means doing nothing or abandoning all effort. It's about a different kind of effort, an effortless effort. It's the kind of effort a dancer makes when they stop trying to control every movement and instead flow with the music. It's the effort of a sailor who works with the wind and the currents rather than against them. This kind of effort is rooted in trust. Trust in the natural rhythms of life. Trust in your own capacity to navigate those rhythms. And most importantly, trust in the mind's ability to find balance when you stop interfering. Letting go also means letting go of outcomes. We are often so fixated on achieving specific results that we create tension in the process. This tension arises from fear of failure, fear of the unknown, fear of not being enough. But the need for control over outcomes is an illusion. Life is too vast, too complex to be micromanaged. When you let go of the need to dictate every detail, you open yourself to possibilities you never could have imagined. The mind, free from the weight of expectation, becomes more creative, more flexible, and more attuned to the present moment. Another aspect of letting go is releasing the stories we tell ourselves. The mind loves to cling to narrative stories about who we are, what we've done, and what might happen. These stories often define us in limiting ways, trapping us in cycles of regret or anxiety. But what if you could step back and see these stories for what they are? They're just thoughts, like leaves drifting down a stream. They're not fixed, and they're not you. When you let go of these stories, you make room for something new. You create a space where transformation can occur. Letting go is also about accepting what is. This doesn't mean resigning yourself to circumstances or giving up on change. It means acknowledging reality as it is in this moment, without resistance. Resistance only creates suffering. When you fight against what is, you waste energy and create conflict within yourself. But when you accept the present moment, you align with it. This alignment brings peace, and from that peace comes clarity. And from clarity, you can take meaningful action. This process of letting go is deeply liberating. It frees you from the constant struggle to control everything, both within and outside of yourself. It allows you to move through life with greater ease and grace. It's not about abandoning responsibility or becoming indifferent. On the contrary, it's about engaging with life more fully, with an open heart and a clear mind. When you let go, you don't lose control, you gain freedom. And in that freedom, you discover a profound sense of inner strength, a strength that comes not from domination, but from harmony. Letting go is not the end of control, it is the beginning of true mastery. Harmony is a concept that resonates deeply with the nature of the mind. When we think of control, we often imagine discipline, structure, and rigidity. We picture ourselves forcing the mind into submission, believing that this is the only way to achieve focus and clarity. But true control doesn't come from resistance or domination. It comes from working with the mind's natural rhythms, much like a musician creating a melody by harmonizing with the flow of sound. The mind is not an instrument to be forced, it's a partner to be understood, respected, and nurtured. Let's consider the way a skilled dancer moves. They don't try to overpower the music or impose their will on it. Instead, they listen closely, feeling its tempo and mood, allowing their movements to flow in sync with the rhythm. This is how harmony works. It's about attunement, a gentle balancing act that aligns effort with the natural flow of energy. The mind, too, operates at its best when it is allowed to move fluidly, guided by awareness rather than constraint. When we impose rigid discipline on the mind, we create a form of inner conflict. The mind resists being boxed in, it rebels against strict rules and expectations. You've likely experienced this when trying to focus on a task, but finding your thoughts wandering despite your best efforts. The harder you push to suppress those wandering thoughts, the more insistent they become. This is because the mind thrives not under pressure but under understanding. When you approach it with gentleness and curiosity, you create an environment where it can operate freely and effectively. Harmony with the mind also means understanding its dynamic nature. The mind is not static, it shifts, adapts, and flows like a river. Some days the current is calm and steady, while other days it's turbulent and restless. And to work harmoniously with the mind, you must meet it where it is. On days when the mind feels scattered, forcing it to focus may only increase frustration. Instead, acknowledge its restlessness, give it space to settle, and gently guide it back to the present moment. This approach doesn't mean abandoning effort, it means applying effort wisely, in tune with the mind's state. Trust is a fundamental element of harmony. Just as a musician trusts their intuition when improvising, you must trust your mind's ability to find balance when given the right conditions. This trust comes from knowing that the mind has an innate intelligence, a natural capacity to process, reflect, and adapt. When you stop trying to micromanage every thought or feeling, you allow this intelligence to emerge. The mind becomes a collaborator rather than an adversary, working with you rather than against you. One of the keys to cultivating harmony with the mind is learning to listen. Often we treat the mind as a problem to be fixed or a tool to be used, neglecting to pay attention to what it's actually telling us. But the mind communicates constantly, offering insights, warnings, and reflections. When you listen without judgment, you begin to understand its patterns and tendencies. You notice when it's tired, when it's anxious, or when it's inspired. This awareness allows you to respond with compassion and wisdom, nurturing the mind rather than suppressing it. Harmony also requires letting go of perfection. The mind, like life, is inherently imperfect. It has moments of brilliance and moments of chaos. Accepting this imperfection is crucial. When you demand perfection from your mind, you set yourself up for disappointment and frustration. But when you embrace its flaws and fluctuations, you create a space where growth and creativity can flourish. Harmony isn't about achieving an ideal state, it's about finding balance within the ever-changing reality of your inner world. Ultimately, harmony with the mind is about partnership. It's about recognizing that the mind is not a separate entity to be conquered, but an integral part of who you are. By working with it rather than against it, you unlock its true potential. You discover a sense of ease, clarity, and focus that arises not from force but from flow. In this state of harmony, the mind becomes a source of strength and inspiration, a powerful ally on your journey through life. The present moment is the only place where life truly unfolds, yet it's where the mind often struggles to remain. The mind, by its nature, gravitates toward the past, replaying memories, revisiting regrets, and reconstructing old narratives. Or it leaps into the future, anticipating outcomes, worrying about uncertainties, and imagining possibilities. While these tendencies are natural, they also pull us away from the one space where we have any real power, the here and now. To master your mind, you must learn to anchor it in the present. For it is only in the present that you can find true freedom and clarity. Living in the present moment doesn't mean ignoring the past or disregarding the future. Both have their place. The past provides lessons, and the future offers goals and aspirations. But the problem arises when we lose ourselves in either. Dwelling on the past can tether us to guilt, resentment, or nostalgia, while fixation on the future can trap us in fear, anxiety, or excessive planning. In both cases, we become spectators to our own lives, disconnected from the immediacy of experience. The present moment, on the other hand, is not a distraction, it is the source of all reality. It is where action happens, where choices are made, and where transformation begins. When the mind is grounded in the present, it finds a sense of calm that is unavailable in the restless churn of past and future. This calm doesn't come from silence or stillness alone, it comes from engagement. The present is not static, it is alive, vibrant, and constantly changing. To be present is to participate fully in this dynamic flow. It's about tasting the flavor of a meal without distraction, feeling the rhythm of your breath, or hearing the subtleties in a piece of music. These simple acts of mindfulness bring the mind back to the moment, where it can function with clarity and focus. The mind resists presence because it's accustomed to distractions. In modern life, the constant barrage of information, notifications, and responsibilities pulls us in countless directions. The mind becomes conditioned to multitasking, flitting from one thought to the next, rarely settling. And breaking this habit requires intention and practice. It starts with noticing when your mind has wandered and gently bringing it back. This is not a process of force or frustration, but one of patience. Each time you guide your mind back to the present, you strengthen your ability to remain grounded. Breath is one of the most powerful tools for cultivating presence. The breath is always with you, an anchor to the here and now. When you focus on your breathing, its rhythm, depth, and sensation, you draw your attention away from distractions and into your body. This simple act of awareness reconnects you with the present moment. And in that connection, the mind begins to quiet. It's not that thoughts stop entirely, but they lose their urgency. You find yourself watching them pass like clouds in the sky without being pulled into their stories. Presence is not just about mindfulness during calm moments, it's also about finding it in the midst of chaos. Life is unpredictable, full of challenges and surprises. When you live in the present, you don't deny these realities, you meet them with clarity and courage. By staying grounded, you can respond to situations as they are, not as your fears or assumptions project them to be. The present moment gives you the freedom to act rather than react, to choose your path rather than be swept along by circumstances. There's also a profound joy in presence, a joy that arises from simply being alive. When you are fully present, you notice details you might otherwise overlook, the way sunlight dances on water, the texture of a loved one's voice, the sensation of the earth beneath your feet. These moments, though small, are the essence of life. They remind you that happiness isn't something you chase, it's something you uncover by being fully here, fully now. To live in the present is to reclaim your mind from the illusions of time. The past and future are not tangible places, they exist only as thoughts in the present. By recognizing this, you free yourself from their grip. The mind becomes a tool for reflection and planning rather than a source of regret or anxiety. You find that the present moment, once overlooked, is abundant with possibility. It is where you find your strength, your clarity, and your peace. In the now, you are free.